Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be going through my top 15 favorite movies of all time. I have compiled a list based on all the movies I've watched and enjoyed. There is no unifying criteria for why I enjoy these movies other than I simply enjoy them. So you're going to be seeing some like Oscar nominees, Oscar winners, and you're going to also be seeing like just action movies, guilty pleasure movies. So there really is no unifying theme between all of these films, but nevertheless, we're going to go through it anyways. Also, before I begin, I just want to say thank you guys so much. As of recording this, I am at 343 subscribers, and I want to thank you all for that so much. I'm sorry I've kind of been neglecting my YouTube channel just because I don't have many good ideas, and I've also been busy, but I want to be posting more stuff on YouTube. Specifically for YouTube, not just edited down versions of my live content. But yeah, it really does mean a lot. Thank you guys so much for getting me to 343 subscribers. I never thought I'd make it this far, and all of a sudden, subscriber count just started, the sub count just started like going up exponentially after the Trevor Henderson video. So I have you all to thank for that, and I hope that you'll find this entertaining. Without further ado, we're going to get into this list, but of course, thank you guys so much for watching. It means a lot. And alright, let's get into it. Now at number 15, I have Silence. This is a film directed by Martin Scorsese, who is easily my favorite director working in the business today. It follows the journey of two Portuguese missionaries on their way to Japan to evangelize to the people there in... What was the year this movie took place in? Okay, the year is unspecified, but the movie takes place in the 17th century, during the time when missionaries were going to Japan to evangelize. And also, coincidentally, the Japanese were mass persecuting missionaries in their country. So it follows their stories, their struggles to keep the faith, and the impact that their faith has not only on themselves, but on others. Overall, I think it's a really well done film. I think it is Scorsese's love-hate letter to religion, I would say, because he grew up Catholic himself. So this movie is definitely laced with religious themes and his own struggles with faith, and it comes across really clear in the movie. I believe some of the stances he takes in the movie are very profound and should invoke introspection, not only in a religious audience, but in just a general viewing audience as well. It's a very depressing movie and a very grisly movie, so I would only recommend it if you're into that kind of movie. It features the amazing talent of Andrew Garfield, Liam Neeson, Adam Driver, so many talented people on this movie. And I put it at 15 because it is a fantastic love-hate letter to religion and to the ideas that he discusses in the movie. I don't know if I said at the beginning of this video, but I'm only going to be explaining these very briefly because we have a lot of ground to cover. So these explanations are going to be very brief. And that said, we're moving right along to number 14. At number 14, I have the biopic Walk the Line. This was directed by James Mangold, another brilliant director, and it covers the life and struggles of legendary country singer Johnny Cash. Now, immediately, you have Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon, who are my favorite actor and actress, respectively, on this movie, and they killed these performances. Like their performance as Johnny Cash and June Carter, respectively, were some amazing performances. And the vocal talent too. Joaquin and Reese, they both sang on the project. They didn't just dub in other singers or the original singer themselves. They actually trained, they had musical training in order to portray these people themselves. And their own renditions of iconic Johnny Cash songs were so good. So I loved the music, and I loved the focus as well on Johnny Cash's struggles with relationships and with drugs, and how that's all linked back to trauma that he went through in his early life. It's a fantastic story. It's a love story at its core, but it's also an addiction story. Johnny Cash, of course, struggling with a substance abuse problem for quite a lot of his career. And overall, I thought it was a great movie, as we got to see him rise to the Man in Black image that is so well known today. All right, moving along, we're gonna go to number 13. In this spot, I have the Western movie No Country for Old Men. This was directed by the Coen brothers, who have directed some of my favorite Western movies, and I would characterize this film, at least what makes it stand out to me as worthy of inclusion on this list, as a farewell to the Western genre. It's kind of a death of the Western image type movie. And we've got fantastic performances, of course, by Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, Tommy Lee Jones. Stellar cast on this movie, as always. That's a consistent theme with this list, is just my respect for the casting choices. But it was a very stripped down, very de-romanticized version of a Western movie. You have your protagonist and you have your antagonist, just like you do in, well, any movie, but also, like, you know, in Westerns, the two usually like butt heads in like a showdown. It's very formal, very out in the open. This didn't have any of that. Spoiler territory, but also the movie's been out for a long time, so I don't feel too bad about it. The ending is what made this a good film for me, so spoilers for the ending. In the end, Josh Brolin, the protagonist, is shot and killed by the main antagonist, and he survives. He walks away carefree. He got what he wanted, and the good guy died in the line of fire. And I thought this was a very important message, especially for the Western genre, because it has a history of romanticizing the story and the hero. Like, you know, the hero always wins, and the evildoer always gets his comeuppance. And that's not the case in this movie. This is a very raw take on the Western genre. In a way, it feels anticlimactic, but in another way, it's so powerful in its message. I would recommend watching this movie for yourself if you can't already tell. I'd recommend any of these movies, obviously, because they're in my top 15. And a very chilling performance by Javier Bardem. He was fantastic, absolutely chilling as the antagonist for this film, Anton Chigurh. I believe a team of psychiatrists actually psychoanalyzed him as the most realistic interpretation of a psychopath in cinema history. So if that doesn't make you want to watch this movie, I don't know what will. Moving right along, we're gonna go to number 12. Alright, this one's kind of an outlier on the list because the films up until this point have been just that, films. Like, they've had a very deep purpose towards them and all this stuff. But this next one is just more of an enjoyment film for me. At number 12, we have Zack Snyder's 300. Now, one of the main reasons I love this movie is it is a masterclass in cinematography and the many techniques therein. Zack Snyder is, in my opinion, one of the most visually talented directors working today. His works, if nothing else, are always visually very stunning. And this movie is like his best, in my opinion, in terms of visual style. You've got the striking colors. You have the amazing lighting, the use of slow motion. It's very excessive in this movie, but it's also an action movie. So, like, come on. Slow motion action is always so cool. And another thing that I really enjoy about this movie is that it perfectly exemplifies Spartan propaganda. By that I mean the whole movie 300 is a soldier's retelling of events that he witnessed and then brought back to Sparta. But it's very exaggerated so as to promote a sense of urgency and Spartan pride, so that he will inspire his men to go into battle and give it their best in one final strike against the Persians. And so this story exaggerates a lot of things. It really demonizes the Persians, showing them as inhuman, which is why you get all these scenes with like monster-like creatures. And the scenes with Xerxes himself, where he's like bathed in golden light. His throne is carried on legions of servants. Stuff like that. It all feels very much like Spartan propaganda, and I love it. So yeah, 300 is on this list because it's just visually striking. That's the primary reason it's on this list. And also because of the implications of this movie being a propaganda piece for the nation of Sparta. All right, and now let's move on to number 11. At number 11, we have Shutter Island. This is Scorsese's second entry in this list, and it will not be the last, I can tell you that. It is a psychological thriller centered around Leo DiCaprio's character of a detective trying to uncover some sinister secrets at an asylum. And again, like many of the movies previous, we have a stellar cast. Leo DiCaprio, Mark Ruffalo. You also had Ben Kingsley and Michelle Williams, very talented actors. And the story was very compelling and very suspenseful. I think Scorsese did a really good job in this movie of building and retaining tension. I think that's where this movie really shines, is in tension. And the twist at the end. I won't spoil the ending, unlike previous films we've talked about, but the ending alone, the twist is well worth the watch. And I would recommend this movie highly to anyone who loves thrillers, psychological thrillers, films of that genre. All right, moving along. At number 10 is what is, in my opinion, the ultimate revenge story in cinema history, and that is Gladiator. Directed by Ridley Scott and starring the acting talents of Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix, this is a fantastic movie. It centers around the story of a former Roman general turned gladiator and his quest for vengeance against the emperor who usurped his father and also had his family killed. It's a very powerful story, a very tragic story as well, but this film was so well done and so well acted that it deserves a spot on this list. That's all I really have to say about it. It's just a great story and very well acted. Also, the score. The score is fantastic. I believe it was Hans Zimmer who composed the score for this film, and Hans Zimmer is easily my favorite score composer in the film industry today. All right, moving along. At number 9, we have another James Mangold film, as well as another Death of the Western genre style movie, and that goes to Logan. Logan is, in my opinion, one of the best superhero films that has been made, at least in the top 5, easily in the top 5 for me, in terms of superhero movies. And of course, this is the best Wolverine movie that has ever been made. Now, it is very pessimistic and very violent. This is the most graphic entry in the Wolverine franchise, with an R rating, of course. And again, this is in the style of a Western movie. A lot of the story was influenced by old Westerns like Shane. I know that for a fact. And it is yet another farewell to the Western genre, as it imitates a lot of the forms that Western movies take, even in the score. If you listen to the score just on its own, it feels very Western in its style. And the acting is fantastic. The talent of Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Daphne Keane, a very stellar cast, and a great performance from everyone involved in this project. And just the story. I loved the story. Like, this is well worth the watch if you're into extremely violent and tragic movies. As you can tell, there's a theme of me liking violent and tragic movies. We're going to ignore what that says about me, and we're going to go right along to number 8. At number 8 is hands down my favorite war film of all time, Apocalypse Now. This is director Francis Ford Coppola's first entry in this list, and definitely not his last. I think what there are a few things that stand out to me in this film, one of which is the editing. This film is a brilliant masterclass on editing, especially the opening sequence with the music and the slow fades between our protagonist and the jungle and fire, and it's quite a well-edited film. And as with many entries in this film, stellar cast, absolutely fantastic, flawless casting for everyone. Another thing that I found really nice about this story was the almost homage to the story of Dante's Inferno. Just as Dante slowly descended into hell, so too do the main characters that you're following up the river into Cambodia. They face a slow descent into madness in the jungle there. Also, it is also a very anti-war, anti-Vietnam film. There was not a lot of positive sentiment towards U.S. involvement in Nam. But what I enjoy most about this movie is the descent into madness that kind of parallels Dante's Inferno, with their destination, of course, being that most mad of places, where they are confronted with the antagonist and the stand-in for Satan in this Inferno story, and that is Marlon Brando's role of Colonel Kurtz. He was also one of my favorite things about this film. His performance in this movie, Marlon Brando, is absolutely chilling. In the history of film and Hollywood and all that stuff, Marlon Brando is easily my favorite actor who has ever lived. Every role he plays, he executes flawlessly. And this movie is absolutely no exception. His monologue when he's standing in the shadows, recalling the time that he came across a pile of mutilated children in the forest, is... I get goosebumps every time. It is absolutely chilling to listen to. And it's terrifying. The general in this film has succumbed to madness and a fair amount of PTSD, I would say, as well. And Marlon Brando captured that spirit perfectly. The spirit of a broken yet complete madman. And that's why this film is number 8 on the list. Moving on. At number 7, I have a very recent movie, Dune. There are many things that I enjoyed about this movie. One of them was the sense of scale. The absolute size of the sets, the ships, everything. This movie felt so big because the story that they're telling is so big. The costumes, the set design, all of it. There's a term in film called mise en scène, and I think this film had the absolute best demonstration of mise en scène that I have ever seen, or at least seen in quite a while. Maybe pull up a definition of mise en scène right there. There it is. That's what I'm talking about. Dune has this. And the score was absolutely epic. Another entry by Hans Zimmer into this list. The score was absolutely fantastic and so loud. It really fit the sense of scale that this film had. And the world building and storytelling that this movie exhibited was amazing. Normally when I'm going into a fantasy movie not having known any of the story previously, I get lost on certain details. It's like, I don't know, I can't remember names of species or planets or anything like that. But this movie was so well done that I actually was able to retain most of the information that I was being given. It not only gives you backstory into like the people and their history, but also like their beliefs, their religions, and everything. And it's fantastic. I really loved the first Dune movie, and I really hope they do the second one just as well. And the casting again was perfect. The casting was fantastic. I wouldn't have changed a thing. All right, moving on to number 6. At number 6, I have Matt Reeves's The Batman. This was hands down my absolute favorite Batman film of all time. No question, period, full stop. The best Batman movie I've ever seen. I've talked in great length about the new Batman film on this channel, so if you want, go see my film student reviews video on the Batman to get details as to why I like it so much. Basically, I'm just gonna sum it up. Casting, cinematography, and the design of Gotham as well, and Batman's character arc in this film all make this my favorite Batman movie of all time, and number 6 on my list of favorite movies of all time. If you want to hear more in-depth discussion on it, you can go check out my old video on that. Maybe I'll put a card here. I don't normally do that, but maybe I'll put a card up here, so if you see it, then I did it. Check out the video if you want to know more about why I think this is the best Batman film of all time. Going into the top 5. At number 5 on this list, and what is hands down my favorite comic book movie of all time, The Joker. And there are many reasons for this. The acting was superb. I loved Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of Arthur Fleck / the Joker in this film. It was chilling, it was sympathetic, and yet absolutely terrifying. The cinematography was also amazing. Their use of color and the lenses that they use. I don't know what lenses they used for this project, but it was really working in their favor. It was a great tribute to classic films like Taxi Driver and Fight Club, films like that. Very famous films. And as far as the Joker, this is my absolute favorite adaptation of the character. It's so hard to compare him to Heath Ledger because their performances were so different, but I think this was my favorite ode to the Joker that has ever been made. And the ending was fantastic. This kind of, when he fully succumbs to his psychosis, this kind of like really dark whimsy almost to it, especially in the last 20 minutes. It was just fantastic, very well done. He turned from a very relatable and very tragic character to one of the most chilling performances I have ever seen. And I need to rewatch this movie now that I'm talking about it. So yeah, I'm going to go do that, and then we're going to get into number 4. At number 4, I lumped together The Godfather, both parts 1 and 2. We're excluding 3 because nobody cares about 3. I just love the overarching story of 2 bosses, Vito and Michael. Now, Vito prioritized family above the business, and his enterprise really prospered, and he was well loved by all of his associates. Now, Michael in Godfather Part 2 prioritized the business over the family, and in fact pushed his family away in a lot of ways. And as a result, he ended up miserable towards the end of his life and died alone. It's a great story about family values, despite it being a mafia movie. And again, the acting is fantastic. The casting was perfect. Everyone did a great job on these 2 films. I absolutely loved every minute of it. They're a long watch, but I would highly recommend these to anyone. Alright, we're getting into my top 3 favorites of all time. At number 3, again, this is a lumped together category. At number 3, I have the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Specifically the extended version, of course. The only canon version. I just thought this trilogy was very faithful to the world of Tolkien, even though it took some creative liberties, like there were departures from certain things in the books, but it was still very faithful to the world that Tolkien created. And the color grading was fantastic. This was before you had such advanced like digital color correction tools. I remember watching a behind the scenes video about how they color graded every scene. There was some special technique that they used that was like cutting edge at the time, and it was fantastic. It created a look that has never been replicated ever again. And the prop, set, and costume designs all contributed to making this world feel so real, feel so immersive. A lot of that was done by the good folks at Weta Workshop in New Zealand. They did an amazing job. They have such a creative team down there. Peter Jackson was working with the absolute best. And the iconic characters. Not only were the performances fantastic, but they created such iconic and long-lasting characters in cinema history, especially in fantasy film history. And that's what puts the trilogy at number 3 for me on my list. Moving right along into the top 2. At number 2, I have The Lighthouse. This is a Robert Eggers movie starring the acting talents of Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. First of all, I love the cinematography in this film so much. I geek out about this movie constantly. Just the dedication to such a nostalgic form of cinema. Like, not only shooting black and white, but shooting black and white on film stock, having a 1.12:3 aspect ratio, and even the use of old lenses that haven't been used in Hollywood since the 40s. And that's real. They actually used, like, these antique lenses at this point to capture this movie. It feels like if a really artsy photography student filmed this movie, and I absolutely love it. And the acting, of course. The performances were fantastic. From the absolute mania to the calmer moments to the aggressive moments. It was a very terrifying descent into madness. And the story itself is fantastic. For reference, I'm going to be getting a lot of the information that I say from here on out about The Lighthouse from Wendigoon's video on The Lighthouse. He did a video quite a while ago on The Lighthouse. Maybe I'll put a thing here if I've started putting things here now. But check out his video on The Lighthouse for a lot of what I'm saying. And spoilers for the ending, of course. First of all, I don't believe anything that in The Lighthouse is literal. Like, they're not actually just two lighthouse keepers looking after a lighthouse, even though that is a very real thing that people did back then. I believe that this movie is a symbolic journey of a sinner's descent into hell. Again, we're going to be going with Dante's Inferno style parallels, and very direct parallels, might I add. Basically, the story that I think is actually happening is Robert Pattinson's character Winslow is being judged for the sin of murdering a friend of his during his life. This is symbolized by the seagull that he kills during the movie. He is told all the while not to touch the seagulls or to harm the seagulls, and yet one drives him to the point of just brutally bashing it against a rock. It's a very upsetting scene. I believe this is symbolic of the murder he committed on his friend in the real world. And the end scene has so many, like, very striking parallels to Dante's Inferno. Not the story, but just like the descent into hell imagery. One of the things we see after he murders Willem Dafoe's character is he tries to climb up the long spiral staircase to get to the top of the lighthouse, which I believe is symbolic of him trying to crawl out of hell. This is him trying to escape his punishment. The lighthouse, the light at the top, is meant to represent heaven in this image. And so he gets to the top of the lighthouse finally, and the lighthouse opens. He doesn't open the lighthouse opens all on its own, or the light in the center does, which is why I feel like there are more supernatural elements going on than there are literal elements to this story. And as it opens, he starts to scream as though the light burns him, which I believe is representative of, like, he's tried to crawl his way out of hell, but at the end he is still a sinner, and so the light is the light and glory of heaven is too much for him to bear, and so it burns him. The light of heaven causes him physical pain because that's not where he belongs. And afterwards, he's immediately cast back down the staircase to the bottom, to hell, to receive his punishment. And I just think that's absolutely chilling. Like, in a cosmic sense, it is just terrifying to think of that as a physical representation of a sinner trying to claw out of hell and being cast down again. It's a very chilling story and a very well-acted descent into madness. And for the parallels alone, I make this movie 2 on my list. It is very, very well done. Definitely my second favorite film of all time. And now for number 1. Lastly on this list, we have Scorsese's film, The Irishman. This is my favorite film of all time, and clearly my favorite Scorsese film, because it's number 1 on the list. It's the mafia genre, which Scorsese is so familiar with, but it's so different from all his other films. And that's because it is a mafia film from the perspective of an old man. Not only is Robert De Niro's character Frank Sheeran old as he's recalling this tale, but also Scorsese himself is getting older. And so this story kind of reflects that sense of age. A lot of the violence that we see in this movie is not romanticized. It's very cold and it's very quick. This shows that the character of Frank has a lot of regret about the things that he did in his life as a mobster, or at least he doesn't look back on those memories fondly, because they're just brief moments of violence. And the ending, just the depiction of him just as an old man doing normal things like, you know, filling his container with pills, sitting by the TV, just watching TV, having to go to a home eventually. It's chilling, but not in the same way as The Lighthouse was chilling. It's chilling because this film has a very strong sense of mortality. This whole film feels like a memento mori, or just a reminder that death is inevitable. And even the most powerful people, the mafia, at the time, because this story takes place, or at least a lot of this story takes place during a time when the mob was basically at the height of their power. Like, they owned everything, they controlled everyone. And yet, even people as powerful as this, they still have to go through the same thing that we do. Old age, sickness, weary bodies, and death. It's a great reminder that we're all going to the same place eventually. We're all going to die. So are you going to look back on your time on this earth and think that it was all worthwhile, or are you going to look back and have regrets? And it tells this story by featuring an old man who has so many regrets. And that's why I think I love this film so much. It's a mafia movie, but it's not the kind of mafia movie that we're used to. And it really reminds you to you know, treasure the life that you have and try not to live a life full of regrets. And with that concludes my top 15 favorite films of all time. I hope this was entertaining, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what some of your favorite films are, or if you agree or disagree with some of the entries on this list. I know 300 was definitely an outlier on this list, but I just had to include it because it did have such an impact on me at least visually, as a film student. And again, thank you guys so much for 343 subscribers. I never really expected my channel to get the amount of subs that it has. Nevertheless, thank you guys so much. I hope to keep creating more entertaining videos for you guys in the future. It really does mean a lot that you guys watch my videos and support me. And if you want to support me even further, like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you enjoy all of the videos that you see on this channel. I do have a gaming channel as well, and I stream live on Twitch fairly regularly, so feel free to come check out the stream. We'd love to see you there live. And what else? I think I'm gonna start experimenting with live streaming on YouTube as well, just weekly check-ins. Nothing crazy, like no gaming or anything like that. That's gonna be mostly relegated to my Twitch, but I think just weekly streams where I hang out with you guys, just, you know, interact with you guys, because there are 343 of you, and I want to get to know you guys better. So maybe let me know in the comments as well what day you think would work best to host those streams. I've been debating so many different options, but these would be weekly streams every day on the same day. Not every day, sorry, just on the same day every week. And we would just hang out and, you know, just visit, just you and me. So if that interests you, let me know in the comments, as well as commenting what day you think would work best for hosting those. And I might also set up a Patreon. I'm not sure yet. I talked about this in a previous video that I want to do it just because I want to be able to monetize my content, but I'm not at the 1,000 subscriber mark that you need to be at to be eligible for YouTube monetization. So if you guys have ideas for things that I could include on Patreon as awards for paying patrons, let me know in the comments as well. I'm asking you to put lots of things in the comments, aren't I? But please do. I'm genuinely curious. And this wouldn't be an expensive Patreon. This would be like $3 to $5 Canadian to be a monthly supporter. So yeah, let me know in the comments what kinds of things I could offer as rewards. And with that, that's gonna do it. Check out my short film also on this channel. On that night, poured my heart and soul into that film, into that story, and I think it turned out excellent. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you enjoy all my videos, check out all the socials linked in the description. And thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. And I will see you in the next video. And cut.